Welcome back. The Department of Petroleum Resources in Lagos has sealed off some fuel and gas stations at Lekki and Alimosho local government area for not complying with the rules. The DPRL says it has commenced its routine operations across the state to ensure that the operators of petrol and liquefied petroleum gas abide by the laws.
It's a routine inspection by the Department of Petroleum Resources to ensure compliance to safety rules by fuel stations. Their route takes them through Victoria Island. Most of the stations visited appear to be operating within the rules. This particular fuel station has been sealed off due to non-compliance.
We have licensed the filling station for safe operation, not as a parking lot. So that is why we have to close down their operation in order to bring correction to that area. And by the time we see the standard operating procedure of their operation, we assure them that they will be on sale.
At Ijegun Depot in Alimosho area of Lagos, the DPR team educates the workers on safety measures.
Collective safety activation is that a depot has an emergency issue. We want to see how that depot activates to tackle that emergency and how other depots around it in the cluster also reacted.
The downstream oil sector regulator sealed off a gas station for operating under unsafe conditions.
What we are seeing is not good because the operation is very, very unsafe. The filling shed is full of cylinders, no organization. So we are shutting them down because the safety have been thrown overboard.
Also in the same area, a fuel station was sealed off for not abiding by the rules.
This facility was not approved for construction by the Department of Petroleum Resources, essentially because we find this site unsuitable.
As the Department of Petroleum Resources continues its surveillance across the states, they're asking the public to report defaulting stations in order to ensure that standard procedures are adhered to.
The country's public debt profile rises. Kayode will be giving us the numbers on Business News.
You first. First Bank.
That's right, Melinda, and you're welcome to Business News. Nigeria's portfolio of public debt was up 2.3% in the first quarter of 2019, showing a figure of 24.94 trillion naira at the end of March. A new report released on Wednesday by the Debt Office says the increase of 560 billion naira during the period was accounted for largely by domestic debt stock, up by 458.3 billion naira. External debt also rises by 101.64 billion naira in the January to March 2019 period. Nigeria has been pushing down the size of its public debt via treasury bills and naira bond borrowings, aiming to cut down interest rates payable on such securities. Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo met with a delegation of the London Stock Exchange Africa Advisory Group, led by its chairman, Mr. Sunil Bakshi, at the State House. After a closed-door meeting, a leader of the group told journalists that they are on a mission to deepen the African Stock Exchange as Africa remains a strategic partner. He says they are also working closely with the Nigerian Stock Exchange on a number of initiatives, while he called for greater transparency and innovation in the markets. And we stay with the Vice President, who has revealed that the federal government wants to see a vibrant capital market. Professor Osinbajo made this known when he met with the Capital Market Master Plan Implementation Council, led by its chairman, Mr. Olutola Mobolori, at the State House. After the meeting, which held behind closed doors, the chairman of the council revealed that the council presented a report on a national savings scheme strategy for Nigeria to the government, which is expected to transform the economy if well implemented. In more stories now, the Dutch Minister for Foreign Trade and Development Cooperation, Sigrid Kaag, says there will be more areas of cooperation between Nigeria and her country over the next few months as they seek to improve Nigeria's agriculture sector. Ms. Kaag is leading a large business delegation to the country, building on a memorandum of understanding which was signed last year in Nigeria. During a business meeting in Lagos, 2 MOUs were signed between Dutch and Nigerian businesses in cattle rearing and recycling as part of efforts to achieve Sustainable Development Goal 17.
There was a partnership agreement signed to establish a training center in terms of dairy practice and to help agricultural extension activities reach a level that's required that really also assists smallholder farmers. But it's an example of many. This trade mission is comprised of over 34 participants from knowledge institutions, universities, the private sector, and of course also government representatives. We work in what we call the Dutch Diamond, so it's a shareholder, stakeholder approach where we optimize the knowledge and expertise that's available to really focus on the agri-food business. Training is an important part of that. Now, we've signed last year a memorandum of understanding between Nigeria and the Kingdom of the Netherlands, so there'll be a sequencing and a continuity of missions, of engagements, of exchanges to foster and to further the strength of the collaboration.
And now news from the NSE. Despite a strong rally by the banking sector, the stock market ends Wednesday's session in the red, reversing a 2 consecutive day recovery. Let's get the details from Medidiong Iwang.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Airtel Africa's share price fell by 9.99% a day after the company listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, while the all-share index reversed Tuesday's sentiment and was lower by 0.21% as investors await policy direction from the government before taking position. Wednesday's session saw some mixed sentiments on the sector chart as 3 out of the 5 sectors we track closed the day negative, with oil and gas down 1.06%, while industrial goods and insurance shared 0.54% each. On the flip side, the banking counter rose 2.63% and consumer goods added 0.26%. Just like Tuesday's session, shares of Zenith Bank were the most actively traded, while a paltry 188.77 million shares worth 3.71 billion naira changed hands in over 3,300 transactions. NPF Microfinance Bank is the highest gainer for the day by 9.71%, while Forte Oil lost the most by 10%. But that's a summary of midweek trading at the Nigerian equities markets. I'm Edidiong Iwang.
On a global scene now, U.S. markets end midweek trading session higher, with the S&P 500 index hitting the 3,000 level for the first time. Let's see how other markets fared today. Thank you for watching Business News Tonight. I am Kayode Okikiolu. The news at 10 continues with Melinda.
You First. First Bank.
Many thanks, Kayode. Time for some international stories now. Here's Simon Pusey with Around the World in 5.
Good evening from the Channel studio here in London. Sir Kim Darroch has resigned as UK ambassador to the US amid a row over leaked emails critical of President Trump's administration. Sir Tim was made ambassador to the US in January 2016, having worked as the UK permanent representative to the EU. In a series of tweets, Mr. Trump called the ambassador a very stupid guy. It's after emails from Mr. Kim were leaked, which called the current US administration clumsy and inept. In a letter to the Foreign Office, Sir Kim said, "Since the leak of official documents from this embassy, there has been a great deal of speculation surrounding my position and the duration of my remaining term as ambassador. The current situation is making it impossible for me to carry out my role as I would like. The Prime Minister, Theresa May, said in the House of Commons it was a matter of great regret that he felt it necessary to resign.
The whole Cabinet rightly gave its full support to Sir Kim on Tuesday. Sir Kim has given a lifetime of service to the United Kingdom, and we owe him an enormous debt of gratitude. Good government depends on public servants being able to give full and frank advice.
Meanwhile, Iran has warned the UK it will suffer the consequences for seizing an oil tanker off the island of Gibraltar. President Rouhani demanded the immediate release of the Grace 1, which British Royal Marines boarded off Gibraltar last week and seized on suspicion that it was breaking sanctions by taking oil to Syria.
You are the initiator of insecurity, and you will realise the consequences later. Now you are so hopeless. When one of your tankers wants to move in the region, you have to bring your frigates because you are scared.
The former British Prime Minister, John Major, says he would seek a judicial review to stop the future leader shutting down Parliament in order to force through a no-deal Brexit. It comes a day after the two candidates for the top job took part in a heated debate. Boris Johnson once again said he would suspend Parliament if necessary.
If that were to happen, I think there would be a queue of people who would seek judicial review. The Queen's decision cannot be challenged in law. But the Prime Minister's advice to the Queen can, I believe, be challenged in law.
The German Chancellor has been seen shaking for the third time in as many weeks. Angela Merkel shook visibly as she stood at a military honours ceremony alongside the Finnish Prime Minister outside the Chancellery in Berlin on Wednesday. It followed similar episodes on June the 18th and June the 27th. And as in both those cases, the 64-year-old recovered quickly as she started walking. Afterwards, she told journalists she was fine. Continuous torrential rain in East China's Jiangxi province has triggered floods, leading to the evacuation of tens of thousands of residents. Over 60,000 residents were affected across some 12 towns in Jiangsu city, with the floodwaters reaching 2 meters deep in some areas. Firefighters have been dispatched to rescue the trapped with steamboats and transferred them to relocation centres. Australia has announced it will hold a national vote within 3 years on whether to include recognition of Indigenous people in the country's constitution. Australia has struggled to reconcile with descendants of its first inhabitants, who arrived on the continent some 50,000 years before British colonists, but are not recognised in the country's constitution. Amid overwhelming public support, Ken Wyatt, the first Indigenous Australian to hold the position of Minister for Indigenous Australians, promised a referendum before 2022. The Iraqi Ministry of Culture says the successful inscription of Babylon on the UNESCO's World Heritage List provides many opportunities for industries in the country.
Babylon catches the eye of the world and will also attract tourists from other countries as well as public and private tourism institutions. We will continue to develop the historical sites so as to boost the development of tourism.
And finally, Barbie hopes to encourage more girls to consider careers in the space industry with the help of a new role model, Italian astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti. The 42-year-old has been presented with a unique doll in her likeness as Barbie. Cristoforetti, who was the first Italian woman in space, said that she hopes the collaboration between the manufacturer and the European Space Agency will help young girls and boys to dream about their future without limits. The partnership is part of Barbie's ongoing Dream Gap project, which the brand says is aimed at challenging young girls' beliefs about their possible futures.
With hard work and a little bit of luck, you can be anything.
And that's your international news around the world in 5.
Really nice dolls there. And still ahead on the news at 10, Super Eagles of Nigeria head for the semi-finals of the Africa Cup of Nations in Egypt. That's in sports news. Join us again.